All right. All right. We're going to be real off the cuff with it because I just want to talk about it. Um, so, hey y'all, Clarati, um, multimedia artist, just received my master's in counseling with a concentration in art therapy. So, know that mental health perspective always is a lens through which I'm looking at the world and the things that I consume, and an artist perspective. But I finally watched Inside Out 1 and 2, and I wanted to do like a long term video, long form video, just talking about like my reaction to it. And honestly, I was avoiding watching these movies because I knew that it was going to hit me. I knew it was going to take me out. I knew it was going to hit a very sore spot, because I've always had a difficult time feeling my feelings and processing my emotions. Definitely, of course, a lot better now, recognizing them and actually knowing, like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. It's okay to have feelings. Let's process them. But that took some time. So I was avoiding watching the movie for that very reason. But I finally watched it and I have some thoughts. And now I watched it maybe last week or so. I just wrote down like some quick things that really struck me when I was watching it, and I just want to like talk about that. This won't be like an in-depth scene by scene sort of recap, but these are just like my initial thoughts. So when I was watching Inside Out, so my first note, this is from Inside Out 1 and 2. 1. I wrote, so I'm 4 minutes into Inside Out and I'm already crying because feelings are not facts. And for me, like, it's so interesting how deeply my feelings determined my actions when I had no idea what I was feeling. Like, how much I was just reacting to whatever situation was in front of me, and as opposed to, and this is not like a bashing myself, it's just an acknowledgement, right? Like, I felt the feelings, I responded however responded, and whatever the outcome of it was, I know now that it's so much better to be able to assess how I feel, because if there's room for a better response, or even in my reflection of whatever happens, like, it gives me information as to why I responded that way, what in the environment triggered me or inspired me, whatever it may be. And this idea of, and I feel like I first really resonated with the quote, facts are not feelings, or feelings are not facts, maybe like a year ago. And initially I was resistant to it because it's like, it sounded invalidating, right? Like, I finally figured out how I feel about things. I finally, am taking the time to care about how I feel about things, and you're telling me that they're not factual? Like, no. But, right, like, I think it's more of an and situation. I think it's more of like a, how you feel is how you feel, and that's fair, right? Like, in the first 5 minutes, what Riley is still like a tiny little baby, crying and screaming and being goofy and being sad and being needy and just like having feelings, just feeling a whole lot of things. But recognizing that feelings may not be congruent with what's actually occurring in reality, right? Like, you're screaming and crying and kicking for something you want, when in fact what you want is coming. It's coming. It's just not here in this very moment, right? Like, I'm thinking from the perspective of a baby, but even as we get older, right? Like, something makes me upset, something makes me anxious, something makes me angry and sad, and sometimes the feelings are way bigger than the actual situation. And I think, like, there is room for a balance of, okay, this is how I feel, this is how that made me feel, let me put that against what actually happened and make an informed decision that way, and kind of just be able to get out of myself for a second, because feelings are like so intense. They could be so intense, like physically, emotionally, spiritually. It's just like you can't just like pull them out of yourself. They're just there. The second note was at the end of the movie, right? We know at the end that all the emotions have to work together, that joy can't exist without sadness, right? And I loved how, like, you know, the concept of sadness gives the full picture of the memory. Sadness is able to converse with Bing Bong. Sadness is able to converse with Bing Bong when Bing Bong isn't feeling good, because sadness is able to recognize that there are more emotions to feel, and it's the totality of the experience that like makes up, it's the totality of the emotions that makes up the total memory, makes up the experience. So like joy, you know, at some points for me, I could feel myself having this resistance against joy as an emotion, because it was just like you keep kicking, you know, sadness away. And to see at the end that, like, the memory ball was both blue and yellow, right? Even how joy had blue hair. So interesting. But like that every emotion needed to work in tandem. Now it's interesting because the conflict was with sadness, right? And then what were the other emotions? It was anger, sadness, joy, fear, and disgust. And that makes sense, right? Those are like our baseline emotions, right? Wow, dang, this movie was good, because those are our baseline emotions. Like, so I think it's just, for me now, I'm trying to dissect, you know, joy and sadness were in conflict, but the other emotions worked together, like disgust, fear, and anger. And I guess, right, like, there wasn't a lot of conflict between those emotions and joy, because like the goal, it could be that maybe the goal, right, of fear is to be safe. The goal of anger is to be satisfied. The goal of disgust is to like feel good. So joy aligns with that. But sometimes I don't know what the goal of sadness is, like, technically, but I know me, when I'm sad, like, I'm just sad, and it's not like I need to pull myself out of it. It's not that I want to transform it into anything. It's just like this deepness that I feel. And like, even how sadness was like touching all the memories, like she just could not chill out. So that was good too, like how she was, again, like Riley was able to, you know, was able to express how she felt, that like, no, it's not all good, like this is actually a terrible move, I hate it, I'm not happy, I'm lonely, you know. And just being able to be in it, being able to feel her sadness, being able to be honest about, like, I'm not okay, was what she needed to express, to her support system, this is what I'm feeling, to have that positive feedback that what you're feeling is okay, you're not alone in that. And to just have this total emotional experience, that we are not just made up of just joy. That's not the reality, right? My friend said something earlier to my Instagram post and was like, I feel you, and like the world be doing way too much. And I'm like, literally, like, this world is made up of the perfect ingredients for disaster every day, every single day. It's like so many factors that can aid in the reality that joy is not the only emotion to be experienced. Now, in the second movie, the first note was when anxiety talks about like these swarming thoughts and like fears of like, will this last forever? And well, if we don't want this feeling to last forever, we need to be new. Like, we need to change everything about us. And unfortunately, I still operate, I think, sometimes from this idea that like this idea of perfection, that it's when I figure it all out and it all makes sense, and I make the right move and the right choice, and I say the right things, and I go the correct places, and I make the right friends, and I whatever, that's when like all of the bad things will just go away. Like, I'll complete the cycle and they'll take themselves away because there'll be no use for them. And something about this idea of like, as an emotion, right? The fact that that anxiety wasn't in the first movie, right? Anxiety shows, it was anxiety, it was what were the emotions? It was anxiety, it was envy, it was boredom, ennui, it was embarrassment. And again, amazing depiction of like the deeper emotions, right? Like, as a kid, it's like, oh, I'm just so angry. But it's like, no, something happened that you didn't like, and maybe you feel a little guilty, or you feel a little embarrassed, or whatever it may be. Just this idea that behind our basic emotions there are like these deeper emotions that we feel. And to not have anxiety or not have any of those emotions in the first movie, and then in the second movie we get all these emotions, and they're like, all right, let's reconstruct the place, let's knock everything down, let's just suck them up the drain, and those emotions no longer exist because we're in the mix. One, it's like those emotions are still tied to a version of ourselves that is just as important, right? This childhood version, these memories that inform who we are in the present day, whether it be teenagehood, adulthood, whatever. But also, again, like we learn in the first one that these emotions have to work together, that it's the totality of what is it that each of these emotions is needing. And we're not always going to meet those needs, but to be able to tap into anger is how I expressed my embarrassment. Okay, maybe these are two areas that I need to focus on in this moment. Why was that my reaction? What triggered it? What do I need? I hope I'm making sense. Now, bro, anxiety was pissing me off. Like, anxiety was making me so mad, especially at that scene. And that's how I knew, like, like I'm relating to this junk. Like, oh, I was like so irritated watching a movie when anxiety was in like that, freaking just the storm of angst. And like, it was so powerful how she was at anxiety was at the motherboard, and it was like translucent and wasn't even like there, like was so caught up in what was happening, so in the mental space of just like everything's going bad, nothing's gonna go right, I'm trying to fix everything, but you're trying to fix it in a you're not okay right now. So whatever moves you're making are coming from a place of fear, right? Or coming from a place of and sadness and worry, and just like you don't want the worst outcome to happen, but you don't even know if that's going to happen. And I think that's where it was like, that's how I know when something is mirrored, like when I'm being mirrored in something, when I get really aggravated with it, because it was just like, bro, you're tweaking and you don't even know like if that's gonna happen. Like, we saw that Riley still made the team, right? But anxiety had found all of these reasons as to why, like all of these reasons, all of these ways to ensure what she wanted would happen, found all of the reasons why it wouldn't happen, and then tried to get solutions to made up reasons. Like, nobody said, that you're just not going to make the team, and it was like all of these things where it was like, again, back to, okay, what is the actual reality of the situation? Because the reality of the situation, right? Okay, I'm not an athlete, so I also could appreciate that perspective of a lifestyle. I don't really know the pressure of being a student athlete, of being a young athlete, right? But I've heard people talk about it, and I've had people around me that have been, and in the things that I've been anxious about in my life, right? Like, the reality says that perfection is never going to happen. And I was thinking the other day, two thoughts. One thought is like, one, do I need it to be perfect, or do I need it to be worth it? And I think when you're young, like you don't care about that. You just want what you want. Like, I didn't see like the value of value. I just saw black and white. I get it or I don't. And if I don't, then it's all bad. And that's just, that black and white thinking is so limited. But also, the other thought is, and this is to my like own spiritual practice, but even when I look, because I find that this really helps me, when I'm able to recognize the similarity between, or like the oneness of me and nature, right? Like, nothing in nature is perfect. Like, it's perfect because it's imperfect. Like, this leaf is so pretty because one side is green and one stem is longer and there's a hole here, right? Like, the essence of the beauty of the world is that some things are perfectly the same, some things aren't, some things, what I'm saying, just like this unevenness of the world, and we are nature. So how can I, in my own spiritual practice, believe that the world is beautiful and I'm a reflection of it, and then try to be perfect? Like, that, again, incongruence in the reality of the situation and what I want. So yeah, it was just like anxiety. Like, how do you know you're not going to make the team when you've made up every reason to why you wouldn't? And then like to see how far Riley went to like get that answer. like to sneak into a building and, break this. Obviously, it really bothered Riley, right? Like, I have this a core belief of trust, right? We know she had Honesty Island, right? Like this whole, if I value these things, but my anxiety is so bad that I'm willing to pull back and to go against what I believe in order to, what do I want to say? Prove something that, like, doesn't. And then she opened a book and it was just as vague. I also, like, I really am not an athlete, so maybe, like, okay, I would say with like paint, like being an artist. So we know fine arts, studying fine arts, like you got to put the picture up on the board for everybody to look at and get feedback from the professor. I would have some times where I knew, yo, this eats. Like, this eats. And I'm sure people agreed and didn't agree. And I vaguely can remember being so anxious about those critiques because when people agreed, it felt so good. Like, oh my gosh, like, duh, like, yeah, I agree. This is how I was feeling too. So, to have your validation is so amazing. But when they didn't agree, it like crushed something in me because then to me, I attributed so much value to that piece of work. Like, this is a reflection of who I am. So if you don't like it, you don't think I'm good. Like, no. That's not how that works. Especially when I put some stuff up there that I know I ain't really try. And then there's also that like weird thing too, like, well, I ain't try anyway, so whatever. Yeah, you think it's bad. Like, oh my gosh, the way the brain is just able to create problems and solutions at the same time. And I just gotta keep really working through this because I really think it was a really, really, really good movie, and well, it's really good movies. And the final thought is, I would love to see that same concept for a different cultural and familial dynamic. It's something about both of her parents are present, right? Both of her parents are presumably working. So I feel like I would love to see the nuance of like this for more complicated, situations. I think this definitely brought in, the whole like moving narrative and the idea of losing friends and, trying to be on a team. And like, I thought those were, of course, universal experiences. But again, like, we could be a little more complicated. Like, how do you find emotional regulation when nobody is emotionally regulated around you? Your family, your environment, like that's not even a part of y'all conversation. You don't get a lot of support. You don't get a lot of positive feedback from your parents. Like, what are the ways to still get to that wonderful outcome of regulation? Because then it becomes the question of like, well, I don't have that, so is that even obtainable for me? I think, again, like the representation aspect of media, that kids from any background should be able to look up there and say, this is obtainable, and this is a way to get there. So I think that nuance would be cool to see, like, even the same concept, right, of Inside Out, just with a different life experience, would be good. So those are my thoughts. You know what I'm saying? Let me know what you think. What were some of your reactions to this movie? I was bamboozled. I came into this spiritual game thinking, ooh, I'm gonna do all the things. I'm gonna take I'm gonna get the journals. I'm gonna get the mats. I'm gonna drink the water, and I'm gonna heal it all. And I'm here to tell you that is not the way it works. I have been doing this for a decade, and every year is something new. Every day is something new, and sometimes I put it completely down and I'm over it. But I think if I will be the first person to say that to whoever is listening that thinks that there is an end to the turmoil and the chaos, not in a nihilistic way, but just in a way of like, it's constant work. Honestly, it is. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder. It's an ebb and flow. It is an ebb and flow. And I wish somebody would have told my 16-year-old self that. That's what I want to talk about, the belief system that we see in Inside Out 2. This idea that, like, we have core beliefs about who we are as a person, right? Like Riley was saying, like, I'm a good person, or I'm kind, right? I'm smart, or flip side, I'm a bad person, I'm mean. Like, just the fragility and finality of these core beliefs. And something that I struggle with in my spiritual practice is I feel like sometimes I'm way better at being consistent with it than others. And I think the goal, right, it's a good goal to have of like, hey, like, every day I have this practice. But I think what I've had to come to learn is that, like, my practice changes with my life. Like, sometimes I have the space to journal and do yoga and dance every day. Sometimes I don't. Like, I don't have the time in my schedule. I don't make the time. I'm anxious. I'm like, I think that's why it's interesting to like be talking about this now, right? At the age I am now, because I'm sure in a few years I'll have another perspective, and maybe I'll be able to do a better job of like making the room to put that into my day to day. But right now I'm very much, when I'm consumed in something, I'm consumed in it. And again, learning that emotional regulation. But I think that's a skill. A skill is like, how are you able to evolve your practice based on what's happening around you, and not feel like it's a reflection of where you are on your journey. Like, some days I make better choices than others, but like the foundation of who I am doesn't change because of a choice. It just doesn't. And I'm gonna work on believing that. I love how the emotions were given their own personhood and like their own, I guess, entityhood, right? That sometimes my anxious brain is louder. Some days my fearful brain is louder. Some days I'm jumping for joy, and it doesn't define who I am as a whole. It just shows the many working parts of me as a person, and perfection is not obtainable. And now that I know that, how am I able to move through the world and make decisions and accept that perfection is not obtainable? Yeah, I think it's just so like, these are not the things that I thought I would be battling with in my 20s. Like, this is not, I don't know what, I did not imagine my life to be what it is now. Like, at all. Like, at all. And I mean, I think it's great, but it also is difficult to sift through, like, still me, like, these humongous concepts, um and not do the black and white thinking, and not feel like a fraud, and not feel hopeless, or also not be idealistic, like yeah. I'm gonna go through this, and let me know what y'all think. I'm gonna stop talking now.